Welcome back to the DRS zone. If you're listening to this right now, you were probably looking for that great reset we were all promised with the 2026 regulations.
Oh, absolutely. The perfect storm, right?
Yeah.
On paper, at least.
Right, exactly. We were sold this absolute blockbuster movie where Fernando Alonso, the samurai of the grid, finally gets a sword worthy of his skills.
Adrian Newey on the drawing board.
Exactly, the aerodynamic wizard designing the ultimate weapon, and we were told Honda was bringing the firepower, while Lawrence Stroll basically just wrote the biggest checks in paddock history. It was supposed to be a coronation.
Yeah, the dream team. But as we found out on day 2 of preseason testing, reality has a nasty habit of just tearing up the script.
Tearing it to shreds. Because instead of a coronation, we are witnessing a catastrophe. And I'm really not using that word lightly here.
No, it's the only word that fits.
We are talking about the AMR26 completely dead in the water at turn 4, the silence of the secure desert broken only by the sound of incredibly expensive components just shattering. So today, we aren't just looking at lap times, we are doing a full deep dive, performing a complete autopsy on a project that promised a world championship but is currently delivering a tractor.
And it is a very messy autopsy. But, before people listening think it's all doom and gloom, we do have to look at the other side of the garage, too.
Oh, for sure.
Because Mercedes looks terrifyingly fast. Audi is doing things literally nobody thought was possible. And Ferrari is out there making their rear wing dance, the Macarena.
We are definitely going to break down the Macarena wing later because the technical diagrams are just wild. But we have to start with the elephant in the room, or rather, the broken green machine sitting on the flatbed truck.
The defining moment of the winter so far.
Right. And just a quick heads up for you guys before we dive into the data. This segment is part of our news coverage of recent F1 events. Okay, so let's go to Sahir. Turn 4, the afternoon session. What does the telemetry actually tell us happened?
So Fernando Alonso is out there. He's just trying to get some basic mileage. He's only done 28 laps all afternoon, which is already a red flag. He exits turn 4, and the audio telemetry captures something absolutely visceral.
It wasn't just a clean engine cut, right? Like a stall.
No, not at all. It was this rhythmic, brutal clack, clack, clack that is the distinct, unmistakable sound of metal grinding on metal.
That is the sound that makes every single mechanic in the pit lane just wince in physical pain. But looking at the trace, the engine revs were still climbing.
Exactly, and that right there is the massive giveaway. The engine was screaming, it was saying, let's go, but the car was physically slowing down. That tells us the power unit was completely alive, but the transmission, the gearbox, had completely disintegrated.
It just severed the connection to the rear wheels.
Completely severed it.
So the heart is beating, but the legs are broken. And then we saw the exit. Alonso didn't just climb out of the cockpit. He did the bunny hop.
Yeah, he leapt from the halo.
Yeah.
He made absolutely sure he didn't touch the chassis and the ground at the same exact time.
Because that's the universal safety protocol, right? For an ERS failure.
Precisely. It means the car is electrically live. A massive potential electrical discharge from the battery. The marshals had to put on heavy-duty rubber gloves just to get near the thing. So you have a mechanical shatter in the gearbox and a dangerous electrical failure happening simultaneously.
It's a total cascading systems failure. But I want to dig deeper here because the why is what really matters for you guys listening. This isn't just a stroke of bad luck. Looking at the sources, this looks like a triple threat failure. Let's talk about the engine first. Everyone is immediately pointing fingers at Honda.
Which is natural, given the history.
Right. But Honda dominated the last era with Red Bull. How did they go from world beaters to this fragile mess?
This is the critical context that people always forget. When Honda announced they were leaving F1 a few years ago, before they obviously decided to come back, they didn't just hit the pause button on their operations.
They disbanded the team, didn't they?
Effectively, yes. The specific engineers, the entire brain trust that built Max Verstappen's championship-winning engines. They were reassigned. They went off to work on Honda's jet engines or carbon neutrality projects, or they just left the company entirely.
So they suffered a massive brain drain.
Huge. A complete loss of momentum. So when the board suddenly decided, actually, let's come back for 2026 with Aston Martin, they weren't picking up where they left off. They were practically restarting from zero. They had to recruit new talent, build an entirely new working culture.
While Mercedes and Ferrari were just refining their proven concepts.
Exactly. Honda was basically operating in startup mode.
That totally explains the fragility. It's a green team in more ways than one. And that leads us directly to the second failure point, the gearbox. Aston Martin used to buy their gearbox straight from Mercedes.
Plug and play. Guaranteed reliability.
Right. But now, for the first time, they are building it in-house.
And that transition is proving to be absolutely brutal. You cannot just learn to build a Formula One gearbox overnight. The reports we're seeing from the paddock suggest the integration between the engine and the gearbox is a total mess.
Because of the vibrations?
Yes, the Honda engine has a very specific vibration frequency, and the Aston-made gearbox just isn't handling it. It is literally shaking itself to death. That clack, clack, clack sound wasn't just a gear slipping. It was likely the casing or the internal shafts physically failing under the extreme vibration.
So you have a fragile startup engine bolted to a homemade gearbox that can't handle the torque. And then there is the third pillar, the one that honestly hurts the most to look at, the chassis.
The Adrian Newey factor.
Right, this is an Adrian Newey car. The man is a literal god of aerodynamics. Yet the drivers are stepping out and saying, the car behaves like a tractor. How does that even happen?
It's what we call the Newey paradox. Adrian Newey can manipulate air better than any human being alive. He can give you infinite downforce. But he cannot fix a Japanese combustion engine from his drafting table.
Because the aero depends on the mechanical platform.
Completely. If the engine is too heavy or if the power delivery is incredibly spiky and unpredictable, the aero platform just doesn't work. We saw massive lockups at the front and the rear. The car has a mind of its own. It's nervous.
And when a car is nervous, the driver loses all confidence. Alonso looked like he was wrestling a bear inside that cockpit.
You can have the most beautiful, futuristic aerodynamic concept in the world, but if the thing pushing it is unreliable and heavy, you aren't winning anything. You're just looking really good while you wait for the tow truck.
And the mood in the garage definitely reflects that reality. Lawrence Stroll is overheard calling the 4.5-second pace deficit ridiculous. And Alonso, man, that photo of him standing by the barrier.
Hands behind his back.
Yeah, just staring into the infinite distance. That is the 1,000-yard stare of a man realizing his absolute last gamble might be a total bust.
It's the look of a poker player who pushed all his chips into the middle and is just waiting for the dealer to turn over a terrible card. He knows they're arriving in Melbourne in diapers.
They haven't even done a single race simulation.
They haven't practiced a proper standing start. They are miles and miles behind.
It is just a tragedy in motion. But let's shake off the dust of failure here and walk down the pit lane to where things are actually working, because as bad as Aston Martin looks right now, Mercedes looks terrifying.
The Silver Arrows are absolutely back. And it's not just the W17.1 chassis. It's the driver, Kimi Antonelli.
The rookie sensation is living up to the hype immediately. He topped the timesheets with a 1.32.8. But I really want to talk about the data that suggests they're actually so much faster than that time. We need to talk about the sandbagging.
This is the most fascinating part of day two. So we look at the speed trap figures, right? The top speed at the absolute end of the main straight. McLaren was hitting 330 kilometers per hour. They were absolutely flying.
And Mercedes?
Mercedes only clocked 313 kilometers per hour.
That is a massive difference. 17 kilometers per hour slower on the straight. Normally, if you are that slow in a straight line, your lap time is complete garbage. But Mercedes set the fastest overall lap.
Which implies their cornering speed is just astronomical. But it also implies they are heavily clipping.
Break that down for the listener. What exactly is clipping in this context?
Clipping is when the car's system deliberately stops deploying electrical energy before the end of the straight. Imagine you're flooring the gas pedal, but the car decides to stop accelerating for the last 200 meters just to save battery life.
So Mercedes is likely running with the engine severely turned down.
Or Kimi is just physically lifting his foot off the throttle way early.
So they are driving a Formula One car like it's a hybrid Prius on the highway just to hide their true aerodynamic performance.
Exactly. If they are already a second and a half faster than the midfield while lifting off on the straights, imagine what happens in Melbourne when they actually put their foot down in Q3. The car is operationally perfect.
The pit stops looked crisp. No mechanical dramas.
Just raw, terrifying speed.
That has to be a scary thought for the rest of the grid. But if Mercedes is the predictable giant waking up, the next story is the underdog shocker of the winter, Audi.
The absolute revelation of the test.
Everyone, and I literally mean everyone, wrote them off. We all thought, okay, they are taking over Sauber, they're brand new, give them 3 years to even be vaguely competitive.
But Nico Hülkenberg just clocked a 1.33.9.
Which puts them barely a second off the lead pace. For a brand new engine manufacturer, that is insane.
It is a massive, massive victory. And the contrast here was really vital. Aston Martin tried to buy a super team. They threw money at big names, and they are failing spectacularly. Audi went to Newburgh, Germany, and just quietly built an engine from scratch.
No drama, no massive PR stunts.
Right. They've been running single-cylinder prototypes on the dyno for years. They prepared for this 2026 regulation change like it was a military operation.
So while Aston was trying to force a disparate group of superstars to integrate, Audi was just in the lab refining the engineering.
Precisely. Their chassis isn't a work of art. It's not a Newey masterpiece, but it's totally solid. And that Newburgh engine is an absolute rocket ship.
They have reliability and they have power. They aren't the backmarkers we expected. They are firmly in the midfield fight right out of the gate. It just proves that in F1, hardcore preparation beats hype every single time. All right, let's get a bit technical now. We teased it at the top of the deep dive. Ferrari, the Macarena wing.
This is technical ingenuity at its absolute finest, or maybe its weirdest.
Explain this to me like I'm 5 years old. We all know what DRS is. The little flap opens up on the rear wing. This is definitely not that.
No, not at all. Traditional DRS just opens a slot gap to let some air bleed through. This Ferrari active aero system physically rotates the entire rear wing element. The whole thing twists 225 degrees.
225 degrees? That's almost a complete flip.
It essentially turns the wing from a vertical wall of downforce into a totally flat horizontal plane. It mimics an airplane wing to completely stall the air. It kills the drag instantly, but obviously it also kills the downforce instantly.
So why is the paddock calling it the Macarena?
Because when you watch the onboard camera footage, the thing looks like it's actively dancing on the back of the car. It's twisting, turning, adjusting constantly. But here is the major catch. They took it off the car for the afternoon session.
Was it too complex?
Way too risky right now. Think about it. If that mechanism jams while it's in the flat position and you arrive at a high-speed corner, you have zero rear downforce.
You are just a passenger in a 200-mile-per-hour crash at that point.
Exactly. They need to be 100% sure the hydraulics and actuators work flawlessly before they dare race it.
High risk, high reward. But speaking of sheer speed, there's another technical term floating around regarding the Ferrari-powered cars, so that's Ferrari and Haas. Launch control.
Yes. The GPS data shows they are launching off the starting line like exhalations.
That is a very poetic way to put it from the paddock. Like a sneeze.
Like a jet fighter leaving an aircraft carrier deck.
Yeah.
It is instantaneous. It seems Ferrari has found a highly advanced way to dump the battery energy directly into the rear wheels from a standing start way more efficiently than Honda or Mercedes.
That is going to make the run down to turn 1 in Melbourne incredibly spicy. If you qualify third, but you launch like a rocket ship, you are leading the Grand Prix by the first braking zone.
It changes the entire Sunday strategy.
Yeah.
If you can jump the queue at the start, you control the race pace and the dirty air.
Let's look at McLaren really quickly, too. Oscar Piastri is right there matching Antonelli's pace, same tenth of a second.
The MCL40 is incredibly stable. It's fast, hitting that 330 top speed. Right now, at the absolute front, it really looks like a two-horse race between Mercedes and McLaren.
Which is going to be a phenomenal battle. But we have to look at the back of the grid again. We talked about Aston being mechanically broken, but there is another historic team that is suffering right now. Williams. And this one hurts because it's not a breakdown. It's a fundamental design flaw.
James Vowles, their team principal, was just brutally honest to the media. He straight up said, "We did things very badly this winter. The car is massively overweight."
How overweight are we talking here? Because every team struggles with weight.
The paddock reports say it is 25 to 30 kilograms overweight.
30 kilos. In a sport where mechanics literally scrape the paint off the nose cone to save 50 grams, 30 kilos is a suitcase full of lead.
To put that in pure lap time perspective, in Formula One, 10 kilograms of weight is roughly 0.3 of a second per lap. So 30 kilos, that is nearly a full second per lap lost, just because the chassis is fat.
So Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz are starting every single lap a full second behind before they even touch the steering wheel.
And Vowles admitted it is not a quick fix. You can't just take a hacksaw to the carbon fiber. The weight is structural in the crash structures and the floor. They're looking at a 4-year structure rebuild just to fix the baseline. It's a season-long diet plan.
That has to be absolutely devastating for Carlos Sainz. He left a race-winning Ferrari for this project, and now he's driving a tank.
A very heavy, very slow tank.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit. We've seen the chaos, the speed, the tech. Let's build a definitive hierarchy for the listener based on day 2 of testing. Who sits where?
Tier 1, what we'll call the magnificents, are clearly Mercedes, McLaren, Red Bull and Ferrari, they are in a league of their own right now.
The big four, predictably.
Then you have Tier 2, the midfield. This is where it gets super crowded. Audi is firmly here, which is the huge surprise. Alpine looks surprisingly solid with Colapinto behind the wheel. And even Cadillac, they solved their early teething issues and are actually looking respectable.
In the bottom tier.
The bottom is sadly Williams, purely because of that massive weight penalty we just talked about, and Aston Martin because their car is fundamentally structurally broken.
It is genuinely shocking to see Aston Martin in the exact same breath as bottom of the grid after all the hype and the money spent. Now, I want to touch on one more strategic element before we wrap up today's deep dive. We saw it written in the regulations, but now we are actually seeing it deployed on track. The super clip.
This is going to be the absolute buzzword of 2026. Get used to hearing it. It stands for a radical new energy management mode. Because the new engines rely so heavily on the electrical battery, Superclip is a strategy where the driver uses the combustion engine to charge the battery at a massive rate, 350 kilowatts, even while they are at full throttle.
Wait. So you are driving flat out down a straight, but you are deliberately diverting power away from the rear wheels to fill up the battery.
Exactly. It is like heavily taxing your current income to completely fill your savings account. You go a little bit slower in that specific sector, maybe down the back straight, so that you arrive the main straight with a 100% full battery for a massive attack or defense.
It adds a complete 4D chess element to the driving style. Do I sacrifice top speed right now so I have the energy to overtake you on the next lap?
And we are seeing the drivers aggressively practicing this. Suddenly, a car will just drop 10 kilometers per hour on a straight for no apparent reason. They aren't broken, they're just super clipping.
So what does this all mean for us? We are staring down the barrel of the first race in Melbourne. It's only a few days away. Aston Martin hasn't done a race sim. Williams is incredibly heavy. Mercedes is playing mind games with their top speed.
The main takeaway is that the Great Reset has exposed the organizational cracks immediately. Aston Martin isn't just slow, they are incomplete. They are arriving in Melbourne completely unprepared. While Mercedes and McLaren are out there doing 50-lap stints for finding tire wear and ride height, Aston is still in the garage trying to figure out if the gearbox will physically explode when Alonso shifts into third gear.
And that leads me to a really provocative thought to end on today, something for you guys listening to really chew on. It's the question that nobody wearing green wants to answer right now. Fernando Alonso is 44 years old. He is a certified legend of the sport. He bet his final years on this specific promised combination, Newey Aero and Honda power.
It was the ultimate all-in bet. He pushed every chip he had left onto the table.
If this engine really is the GP2 engine 2.0, if this entire season is already a write-off before we even race, what does he do? Do we see the first mid-season retirement of a legend? Does he just pack up and walk away?
It's a very uncomfortable reality to face. Knowing Alonso, there are really only two options here. He either walks away because he has absolutely nothing left to prove to a broken team, or he straps in and drags that tractor into the points out of pure, unadulterated spite.
I am definitely putting my money on the spite. He will drive that car with pure anger until it explodes or it crosses the finish line. But here is the other angle. What does this do to Adrian Newey's legacy if he built a chassis that simply cannot race because of the engine?
That is the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
Does Newey jump ship again?
We will have to wait and see. Look, if you want to see if that Macarena wing actually works in a race, or if you just want to scream about the Aston Martin tractor with us all season long, you need to follow DRS Sound right now.
We are pumping out content on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube constantly.
We are live, we are angry, and we are ready for lights out in Melbourne. Do not miss it.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us in the DRS Zone.
See you on the track.